So it's been a long time coming for the three of us. Last week it was McGarvin and I rocking and rolling Sunday night, Sophie and I, with a very quick episode. But now the three of us are all here together as, you know what, we haven't heard him publicly say this on this show. McGarvin, Mike Vrabel.
Not who I wanted, but I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Like I'm not mad at it in any way. But I was hoping for Ben Johnson, but I understand why. I understand the appeal of Vrabel, with regards to his ties to the organization, on top of obviously his culture building. And I don't know. I guess it makes sense in the sense that the Patriots needed a culture reset, right? What they were rolling out there last year with Gerard Mayo was not working. It was not it. So obviously they're looking for a culture builder, and so they opted for that over the offensive upside. And I can sit here and hate on that from outside, like, right, because I'm not in the locker room. But if the people inside the locker room or the people inside the building are like, hey, we need someone who who can kind of fix our fucked up culture, then who am I from the outside to say no, you don't? You need someone else. Like, it's fine.
You need someone who's been in those shoes before. That's why I was leaning towards Vrabel this whole time over Johnson. As much as I think Johnson would have been great if he came in, it's a first-time head coach, and that's what yes, it's a whole different situation, but that is what you just had this past year that clearly did not work. I think you need someone who's been a head coach before, who knows how to lead a locker room, and I think that's why it had to be Mike Vrabel.
Let him go to the Chicago Bears or Las Vegas Raiders and have them get unrealistic expectations. Although I do think I have a feeling who his offensive coordinator may be, and the guy who probably could be his offensive coordinator, I think could be a head coach one day, and that's Detroit Lions wide receiver coach Antoine Randall. Because he kind of brings like a sort of like passion to him too when he's on the sidelines as well. Not to Dan Campbell's extent, but like, it's kind of like I can kind of see like how Dan Campbell's took Aaron Glenn with him from New Orleans to Detroit. No, honestly, everything impressed me Monday with what was said. Look, I just loved everyone online saying which just bonded us our first ever episode literally a year ago today. Where it's like, I swear to God, if we hear some like Mail and Thunder crap, I'm gonna like lose my mind. But more than anything,
we just got Elliot Wolf and Vrabel already having an inside joke. That's all we got.
That's one thing though. But the one thing I gotta say too is I love the fact that of how awkward he looked in that video of like, hey guys, can't wait to get started to work. Not how he's like real enthusiasm, how he's just like, I don't want to do this. I just want to go football.
Right. So true.
What was the overall vibe, Sophie, that you got from the press conference Monday? Because obviously, look, you're there in the flesh with everyone else. Like, what was the vibe amongst like you and just like other Patriots media?
It was just different than what had been last year. This felt like a guy who came in with a clear plan. Gerard Mayo's plan coming in was, I'm going to be a head coach. It wasn't, what am I going to do for this team? You had Vrabel up there speaking. I mean, he gave these long answers. We're sitting there because, we went from Bill Belichick to Gerard Mayo, now to Mike Vrabel. Like, we're learning how to deal with all these different answers now we're getting. And with Vrabel, he kind of goes on, but he won't give you that one nugget you're kind of looking for. He's going to keep things close to the vest for the most part. He's very respectful of the media, and he knows we got a job to do as much as everyone else. And he's going to give us what we need. But in terms of like, it almost feels like a little bit of a mix between Belichick and Mayo. He's kind of got that hard edge to him. Like, if you ask a bad question one day, he will tell you, that was a horrible question. I'm not answering that. And Bill would maybe not say it that, but he would just be like, no. Then you have Mayo who would sit there and try and come up with an answer.
Yeah.
So it's just definitely a different vibe. And it did feel like someone who knew what he was doing.
Sorry, I also have to fit the Took theme that McGarvin's got going on today.
I will not be putting on a hat. That's not happening.
I'm having a bad hair day too. No, I completely agree with all the points that were made. Just because, look, it's the right thing to do. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a safe pick. It's the Patriot pick. It's the one we knew was going to happen all along." To that, I just say, look, it's who Robert Kraft wanted. And I don't even want to say who Robert. Like, I respect Robert Kraft for the fact that, look, for as bad as his past season was, that he didn't go back on his word and like, hey, Drod, we're not going to hire you, and we're going to go for Vrabel instead. The fact that, look, last year because that's the thing too. Everyone's saying, "Oh, last year was bad." We all knew it was going to be a bad season last year. Now there's kind of that like And I hate when people do this. Like someone's like, if you look at all the free agents, it's like everyone's on the verge of like retirement or they're old. And it's like, well, I mean, Washington signed Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chin and Bobby Wagner, and we were all going, why? Those guys aren't good anymore, and yet they're still playing football this time of year. So they did something right. So it's just one of those things now where it's like, hey, build the building blocks. Year 2 leap, which also congratulations, Drake.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so
valid reason to miss the press conference, Felger. And just that leap there, and then other people there, but also there's still just a vibe to the team that I feel like is not going to go away from last year, where there's that sense of camaraderie that really, like, I feel like KB really brings together. That will still be there. There's some position stuff, and just there's a sense to, like, I'm going to say this right now, and this might be a hot take, but I feel like this team should have a why not us mentality.
Yeah. It kind of feels like what the Commanders had this year.
Yeah.
And they need that.
Except their quarterback's already probably going to be a MVP candidate going into next year.
He's so good. I think the only thing giving me pause is this past year we saw a lot of
regression.
Well, yes, when you don't have a coach, that's kind of what happens. But we saw a lot of talk out of the locker room that we had literally never seen from this franchise before. And I don't know if I know that Vrabel will try to put a lid on it, but I don't know if the sour attitudes coming out of, especially the wide receiver room, if that was more like we are upset with our coach, or if that was more a thing of like, this is kind of who we are. And I'm thinking more specifically about some of the younger guys who we don't know very much about. Like when Kayshon Boutte is up there and he is, criticizing the game plan, is that something he's doing because he doesn't respect the coaching, or is that something he does because that's who he is? We don't know, because
he doesn't realize what he's doing. In all honesty, like that's just listening to him like in different interviews. I think he just kind of like says what's on his mind and like does.
Yeah, and then the fallout will be what the fallout is.
Like, I don't think he's like, it's like the same way where like you'll say something and not realize it came off as a dig, but it's like a total dig. Like that's just kind of like the vibe I always got from talking to him, was like he never meant it to come off that way for the most part. He'd only like mean that if you were like talking to him kind of like off the record and just being like, like that play, and but. And
then he'd give you the real. But I'm thinking of the rookies as well. Jalen Polk, again, I don't talk to these guys. You do, so you would obviously know a little bit, a little better than I would. But Jalen Polk, Javon Baker was not publicly, not like in the locker room saying things, but he had some things to say on his Instagram. Taekwon is obviously out. He was not happy about his situation here. And then so those kind of things make me wonder, like, hey, is this a matter of like we're kind of speaking out because we don't respect the coaching that we're getting, or is this kind of who we are? And if it's the latter, and I'm not saying that it is, but if it is the latter, if it is a matter of like, hey, Jalen Polk is just kind of like a surly kind of guy. If that is the case, how does that mesh with the culture that Vrabel is going to bring in? Because we know it's the kind of thing that like wouldn't fly with Bill. Like you'd be waved in a minute, but how does that mesh with Vrabel? I'm curious to see if, with more respectable coaching, if some of the chatter that we saw coming out of the team last year, if that is kind of quelled a little bit, because I think that was an underrated big part of why Mayo was out, right? Because like obviously we knew it wasn't going to be great on the field. We all kind of said, hey, it's going to be about 5 wins, and they underperformed, hit us before, but we knew that would be the case. What we didn't know was that like by the end of it, dudes would be like beefing with their coaches like pretty openly, right? Because you think about towards the end of the year, and I've been workshopping this theory. That like you see someone like Keon White who's talking about his future. This is a second-year player. Like, what are you talking? Like you have no say in that. You don't have a say in that. Like,
I just want to comment on that, because what was so hard about that is the person who published that is Karen. Guregian is one of the best Patriots reporters like ever. Like, she's an incredible reporter. And then, the next day it almost felt like Gerard was like, well, I talked about it. That's not what he meant.
And then he came out and was like, that's what I meant.
And then Karen went to him and he was like, no, you wrote what I said. It's just like,
Yeah.
Gerard always made this point that was like, I'm gonna like send messages to my players through the media.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do. And I wonder if at the end of the season, they looked at that and said, well, I'm going to send messages to my coach through the media.
That's a really good. I didn't even think of that. That's a really, really good point there. That's phenomenal. But again, that's another thing where you're just like, man, guy's not even getting like respect from his players. Like, so how does that change going forward? I think specifically with Keon White, that Vrabel would be really good for him, right? He said, at the start of the year that he responds best to hard ass coaching, right? And so when he says that, yeah, absolutely adored the man. So when he says that, he responds well to hard ass coaching. The first thing that comes to mind is, when Elliot Wolf was at the combine and he's like, oh yeah, so much less of a hard ass vibe. And it's like, yeah, but not everyone's going to kind of vibe with that. And we saw that play out. So I'm hopeful that some of that chatter is kind of quelled, because like that really does put a damper on the season. If like, okay, cool, I'm at home watching and I'm not enjoying this, and the guys on the field are also not enjoying this, I'm like, oh, well, we're all just not having a good time.
Yeah.
That's really was the vibe around this team. I feel like after Arizona and after the LA games, where it's just like no one's having a good time. This isn't fun. Like I know the Arizona game, they kind of made something of it, but like there was just the Charger game was just kind of like, yep, let's just get off the field. Let's go. That was my writing on the wall game for Gerard, where I'm like, okay, you're given a prime spot to showcase, and you scored a touchdown and you let up 40 to a team who just, like, I'm sorry, had their worst game against a team that we were really critical of going into the playoffs. But no, it's just that's why I say a why not us mentality. I don't mean it in the sense of like, hey, they're going to go out there and go 10-7 next year. No, if they win anything north of five or more, I'll be happy, because hey, it's more than the last 2 years have been. Please, for the love of God, win 4 games before it starts to snow outside. That's all the other thing I ask too. But the biggest thing with this team is just like, look, more than the cap money, more than the draft picks, is just the fact that there's a lot of endless opportunity with this team, where I feel like we felt the same way after the 2020 season, where it's like last game went well. I know obviously this is a new coach, but it's kind of like, hey, there's the money to spend. We don't know where we're going to be. And when it comes to talking points with teams, everyone next year is going to be focused on, hey, look at that. I know they just got boat race, but I knew that was going to happen to the Broncos. Chargers, they had a bad game. They had to pick their worst day to have a bad game. But I'd rather be in the position where we're in, where no one's talking about us, instead of like, I know I'm referencing playoff teams, but it's just easy. I'd rather be where we are right now than when the Pittsburgh Steelers are. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I know obviously, Sophie, there's someone down the hall who's probably happy I'm saying that, but I'd rather be that whole, hey, don't talk. Like, that's where I say why not us. Like, so the whole sense of like no one's talking about it. It's not Indy where it's like, hey, you got to take a third-year leap, and I still believe that the GM should have been fired. Jacksonville, same thing too, where they're going to struggle getting a head coach, because guess what? No one wants to work with Trent Baalke, which one of my favorite tweets from McGarvin was recently, do you see how fucking goofy this looks? When Trent Baalke was retained and Doug Peterson was fired. So you have this whole dynamic now where you can build off that to where it's like, hey, we're building a culture, we're setting everything. But like I said, too, I think there's a chance that this time next year, we see that Elliot Wolf is no longer with the Patriots tweet coming from a Rappaport, a Schefter, etc.
Yeah, that's something I think feels inevitable. I think the rumblings that we're getting right now, where it's like, oh yeah, Elliot Wolf might be taking a step back, or he'd be open to what is functionally a demotion, but taking on a new role or whatever, however they're going to term it, to like gussy it up. He's probably going to take a back seat. And I think depending on how this draft looks, how his offseason goes, like it's going to be a matter of like, all right, we kept him through, and then he's going to find himself a new job, or a mutually parting ways, or something to that effect. I think it should have already been done. I just don't love the idea of trying to mesh regimes. I don't think it works. It very rarely works throughout the league. You look at guys who are, GMs who are in place before a new coach gets hired, and those guys are usually on their first thing smoking out, or, a new GM comes in and keeps the old coach. That guy's probably gone by middle of November. And I don't know why the Patriots would be an exception, right? It's not like you have to keep Elliot Wolf. Like he got us, whoever. Like the feather in his cap is, oh, he got us Drake May. And then you look at like literally everyone else he brought in, and you're like, Well, he got a Drake May because no one else did shit. I mean, Austin Hooper's a good player, and I like Antonio Gibson. But outside of those 3 guys, everyone else he brought in is kind of a guy that you're like, can he play?
I could throw out some like special teams guys if you want me to that he did a decent job with, like Del Pettis, Marcellus Dial. I'm sorry. Listen, that's my thing.
Marcellus Dial.
Yes, Marcellus Dial has been a really good gunner. I thought he was really good. And Del Pettis was a good find as well, but, undrafted free agent. I'm just saying, like, if we're looking at the big picture, we're not talking about a 6th-round pick, an undrafted free agent, and a 31-year-old tight end, a really nice running back in Antonio Gibson. I'm a big fan. I'm not going to lie. And Drake May.
I'm with you.
But again, you brought in all of these guys, and none of them are around. I mean, Chuks Okorafor played 12 snaps and was gone. Like, just he functionally retired. Like, that's insane. You started Michael Jordan 4 or 5 games longer than you had any right to, and then he was just gone. And Nick Leverett, he was your starting center on Sunday and then was gone. It blows my mind that we're like, oh, we gotta keep Elliot Wolf. He got us Drake May. And I'm like, what about everyone else? They all stink.
Devondre Jacobs, I never need to see him play in a Patriots
Devondre Jacobs, holy cow, get him off the field.
Viridian Lowe does not need to be your day 1 starting left tackle next season.
Holy cow, bro. It's insane. So, like, I understand when people are like, well, he got us May. But, like, come on. That's your layup. He hit his layup. Great. But he missed every other shot. That's someone you put on the bench.
I'm under the impression you got to give him more than a year. Because I don't think he had he didn't get a fair shot at all. He's working with a first-year head coach, a team that, at the time when you're trying to recruit free agents and all that, didn't have a quarterback, or they wouldn't admit who your quarterback was. So you're fearing that Jacoby Brissett's going to be playing all year. Like, how are you expected to get free agents to New England? You already got the high taxes, the cold, and all that other shit. And then now you're sitting there being like, oh, well, but no, you're going to want to come play for us because we have Gerard Mayo, a first-year head coach. We have Jacoby Brissett as our quarterback. We have we have David Andrews on the offensive line, but we don't need anyone else. And City So, who then they just decided to bench randomly.
Yeah, he just didn't play.
Like, it was all this random stuff that, like, no one was going to come. Elliot Wolf never got a fair shot, and he's very well respected across the league. That's very well known, and I think that you're giving him you're putting a coach who's now going to do his job. You have a coach who's knows what to do on both sides. Like, he's going to help Wolf now too. Whereas Wolf was probably doing a little bit more on both sides of leading. Now Wolf can focus on finding talent. He's a scout at heart. That's his job. He is a scout. So if you give him the time to find that talent, I do think that giving him a fair shot. You have Vrabel now. You have Drake May. Like, now's the time for him to show his GM abilities.
See, now my pushback on that is I understand who's going to come here? Like, they didn't have a quarterback. My concern, though, is you went into last offseason with all of the cap space in the world. And you tried to spend it on Calvin Ridley. Good on you. I love that. Absolutely not mad at him for swinging and missing on that, because guys swing and miss. Totally fine with that. You then pivoted and we're like, all right, cool. Well, we have a huge hole at left tackle, and we have no depth across the roster. So Chuks Okorafor, it's going to be right. And we're like, oh, but no, don't worry. He's going to be a backup. And then the very same day, the report came out like, yeah, the Patriots think he can start. He can start. Holy shit. Like, that was when I was like, holy shit, I think we're in for some fuck shit this year. Because, like, that was the guy. They were like, hey, our plan A for our left tackle situation right now, we have no left tackle on the roster. Our plan A for this, Chuks Okorafor and a rookie. That was the plan. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll see what else he does. And then he goes out and throughout that offseason pretty much sits out free agency. And I think that's what really grinds my gear, because people will say, like, well, you can't build a team through free agency. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't build a team through free agency, but you don't have any depth on your roster. There are literally you have, like, an average starting player at one position and then a practice squatter behind him. And that was across the roster. So I just don't understand the idea of like, hey, let's just pass on free agency. And then to back it up, well, we're going to be a draft and develop team. Well, your coach stinks, so he can't develop guys. And so you end up with an 8-man draft class and only one of them can play. So that's where I'm just like,
hey, we agreed Marcellus Dial.
You're right. But he's a special teamer. But he's
come on.
And even then and I know that one's on coaching, but like the guy couldn't even play defensive snaps. Like that's what boggles my mind. I'm like, he's not even playing defense. The season is lost. We've lost 12 games already, and he is just playing special teams. He's just like, hey,
no, we got
I'm gonna gun the shit out of this. Like, that's so crazy.
We got a quarterback, a cornerback, and a gunner.
Like that's just
the Patriots roster.
Sheesh, man. It's so tough to give him the benefit of the doubt when you're like, hey, we're gonna be a draft and develop team, and the draft picks stink. And you're looking at the roster and there's nothing going on, and you're like, well, if we're gonna sit out free agency every year, and this is the guy that we have leading our drafts, are we in trouble?
Yeah, but do we know that they didn't try in free agency? Like, we don't know that.
Did we hear reports to the contrary? Did we hear that they were in on better left tackles?
No, we didn't hear anything about the tackle situation.
Did
but
we
I feel
hear
like
that they were in on
as much? Like that's
on who?
Everything's wide receivers in free agency. Like, yes, every once in a while a big name, but the tackles or the offensive line stuff, I don't know. I feel like we don't hear about that as much. And for me, it's like, or the focus isn't on it as much. We don't know. That's just where I think that you got to give them time, because I'm sure that they were making calls left and right. They were very aware that this offensive line was not it. All season they knew that. But
okay, so what about
they can't get someone? No one was coming here.
Well, what about the defensive side of the ball?
They had
Sophie and I talked about that before you came in.
Oh, okay. I guess I missed it.
That's on coaching.
That's
I'm talking about the personnel on the defensive side of the ball, because we went again. Just looking, Christian Barmore ended up with blood clots. Not on anyone. That's just a shit happens, right? Cool. There's no one behind him. At that point, you have Devon Godshaw as your starter, and then from there, you're just filling the roster with practice squatters because there's no one else. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm like, all right. Like in the offseason, they were like, hey, our plan A for D-line depth is Armon Watts. Got it, guys. We're going to the Super Bowl with Armon Watts. And it's like, guy didn't even make it out of the preseason. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, shit. Like that. Again, I understand wanting to be patient, give him more time and all that. But again, you're just looking at these egregious whiffs and you're just like, all right, but like, what are we hanging our hat on? The fact that he's well-respected, I absolutely understand that. And sure, by all means, I get that. But when you're looking at it and you're like, Jaquelin Roy is one of our best defensive players, signed off of a practice squad because we had literally no one behind him. Bentley went down and there was no one behind. It was Jelani Savai and a bunch of dudes. Like, again, by the end of the season, guys were playing who I had to look. Truman Jones played a really nice game. Really nice game in week 18. I liked what he did. But who the hell is Truman Jones? And this is a guy playing real snaps for you because there's literally no one else. You know,
that was like getting texts from my family being like, who's Miles Battle that final week? Because he was actually balling out that last game.
He had a good game. Look, I'm not going to hold you. He had a good game. Mike Pellegrino did great work with him. I hear it. But again, it's just an overall problem where you're looking top to bottom and you're like, there's just no depth on this roster. Right. And you can say you don't want to build through free agency, and I can absolutely 100% get behind that, because again, you build sustainably through the draft, right? Those guys come in, they're on cheap, 4-year deals. You fill the roster with some young guys who can play, and they're cost controlled. I absolutely understand that. It's tough when you're looking and you're like, there's just no one else, and we didn't get anyone else, and these 8 draft picks weren't gonna do the job by themselves. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, the team needs better personnel, but they also need to, like, take a shot at better personnel. Like, and you know what I mean? Because when you start talking free agency, I feel like people are like, well, you're not going to, studs don't hit free agency. You're not going to find a Justin Jefferson in free agency. Well, no shit. I know that. I'm not talking about a Justin Jefferson. You know what I mean? Give me a Kendrick Bourne, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not this. These are not flashy. Kendrick Bourne gave, career high, has 800 yards receiving. You know what I mean? Like, that is not a huge flashy player, and that was with New England. So coming in, I think he had like 690 or something like that. Coming in, wasn't a guy that you're like, oh my gosh, he's gonna blow the door. But he was a guy that you're like, well, you could do worse as like a 4th or 5th receiver. Like, why not? He developed himself into a nice little piece, and you're like, cool, we can make it happen. It's just like, cool, take those shots though. We can't just be like, well, we couldn't get a Justin Jefferson, so it's gonna have to be, Jaquay Jackson or whatever. It's like, come on, man.
I just think that you have to account for the fact that there's only so many free agents that have that talent you're looking for to help in the line. And part of free agency is they can pick where they want. And even if they're getting a lowball offer from, let's say, Kansas City or even Pittsburgh over the Patriots, every player out there is going to pick Pittsburgh or, one of these other teams over the Patriots last season.
So I guess I'm going to ask, what changes this offseason?
You have a coach.
Right, because we can rehash the past if we want, but let's move forward. What changes this? What changes this offseason where we're like, hey, like things might be a little better. Now we know we have an established quarterback, but like
you have a coach.
Yeah,
you have a football guy.
Yeah, you have a big draw.
Yeah.
You have a guy who has worked with players before that now will be free agents.
So
coaches who will.
Should our expectation be that Elliott Wolf will participate in free agency this year? And I mean, like, actually participate. Don't bring me KJ Osborne and call it good. I mean, and I like KJ Osborne, but he can't be like the answer. I'm sorry. Like, should that be our anticipation? Like, hey, don't worry, guys. Elliott Wolf is going to, really hit the ground running in free agency this year. Or are we going to hear?
If they don't, you have full, like, we will come on this podcast and you will say,
I would anyway, but yeah.
Like, I told you so. Like,
you've been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah. Like, you come on and you be like, I told you so. But I do think that they're going to, I mean, if anyone knows how bad, what was it? Vrabel literally said in his introductory press conference, we are not a football team right now that can take advantage of bad football.
We are the bad football.
Do you know how much of a insult that is to be like, someone fumbles a ball and you're still gonna find a way to like not score or not get any points off that? Like, that's horrible.
Yeah.
So it's like you have, and Vrabel's stepping into the personnel side. All signs it kind of sounds like he has final say in some ways.
Yeah.
Where like he's like not GM, but like they can't really make any moves without checking with him first type of deal.
He's kind of the Bill. Yeah,
he's Bill. And so they have Elliott in to kind of help him out along the way. And I do think that's I don't know. I do think that they'll be able to make more of a splash just because you have your quarterback, and if you can build a coaching staff around him, around Vrabel, that people want to come and work with. Like, Josh McDaniels is not a good head coach. We all know, but he's a damn good offensive coordinator. He is a damn good offensive coordinator. And I think players would want to play for a guy like that on offense because you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy who, look what he could do if he gets the talent around him. He can draw up plays like left and right, do what he needs to do. If you can get a defensive coordinator that can bring you back to the level that you were playing 2 years ago, even under Bill's last season, when you were keeping your offense in games with Mac Jones as your quarterback.
Yeah.
Go get to the playoffs and, same thing. You found out the hard way that, look, we're that good. But when I look at everything else, I would rather be in the position where we are, where it's, hey, we have the coach, we're establishing everything, rather than be the New York Jets who, are interviewing. The three of us might get a phone call for an interview. I feel like they're getting paid per interview to interview people there.
Yeah, I like that they're interviewing so many people, though. It's like, for them, it's a little, well, all right, I like the idea of interviewing a ton of people. I think it's good to get a diversity of ideas, right? Like, hey, how would you fit? Because it's not like they're going in there like, oh, they're generally speaking, you go into the interview, they're asking like, hey, what do you see? How would you address this, and this? It's great to have that diversity. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing it right with regards to how many people they're bringing in. I think them and the Jets, though, are kind of facing the same situation where they're hiring a bunch of people because nobody want to fucking work there. But I like the idea of like, hey, let's bring in all these people. Let's kind of vet all of our options and go from there. If anything, I say Chicago is doing it right. They have a ton of interviews. They're kind of like casting a wide net, and I'm confident that whoever they land is going to be someone that they feel really comfortable with. The Patriots just kind of went with Vrabel, and I've been very critical of that, of that process. But which is whatever. Like they wanted the guy, they went out and they got the guy. Now fill out your coaching staff. Like let's see what we're doing as far as the assistants, because I think for as much as we talk about head coaches being like the most important guy in the organization as far as like the on-field stuff goes, I think the assistants can make or break an offensive coordinator, or can make or break a head coach way more frequently than any of us like kind of put out there. Like we saw what happened. Doug Peterson took the Eagles to the Super Bowl, lost both of his assistants, and all of a sudden forgot how to coach football. You're like, well, what the hell happened? You know, I'm so curious. I agree with you, Sophie, that Josh McDaniels, I'm a truther. I've long since believed in Josh McDaniels, and I will not move off that post. He's a damn good offensive coordinator. People who don't like him just don't really know what they're watching. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Griff, you frozen? Yeah, he's frozen.
Jets thing I got.
Oh, there we go.
Am I? I'm back. Okay, cool. It's my show too. If I freeze, we're cooked. But no, I was just like, while you guys were talking, I was looking up just like a list of like, free agents and everything like that. PFF. There's two names that came up to me that look are reclamation projects in a way because they're battling back from injury. If you can't get T. Higgins, why not take a shot at Chris Godwin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another one too, if you want linebacker depth, Dre Greenlaw is a free agent, and San Francisco probably can't afford him. I know everyone's looking at the attractive names like, Ronnie Stanley, Trey Smith, who I really want Trey Smith for one of the guard spots. But Chris Godwin's a guy who, you probably get it not for a crazy expensive price. And then you have as well Dre Greenlaw as well. Look, if you have Bentley, Tavai, and Greenlaw, that's a pretty good linebacker core.
Agree. I think it's going to be an offseason of looking at some less than flashy names. Only
it's not going to be 21 where it's like, oh, we got Jonnu Smith. Oh, and we got Hunter Henry. Oh, and we
what
got
a rush that was, though. Oh, man, that was a great 12 hours. Like, oh, my goodness, we got hit. Oh, and then obviously,
when McGarvin goes to bed at night, that's what he dreams of. Is that exactly?
Yeah, I was like, man. The notifications hit like crack. I was like, oh my goodness, Hunter Henry. And then I was like, oh man, we got Hunter Henry. Oh, that's a little disappointing. I wanted Jonnu. Oh my God, we got him too. Oh, what a time. But no, I think we should be, or the Patriots should be looking for not only like top end guys who end up in free agency, and by that I mean basically T. Higgins, because I don't really think anyone else is going to hit. But I think it's going to be a year where you're looking at some of the more unheralded guys who are taking a little more risk because, like I mentioned before, the team just doesn't have the depth across the roster. And I think that's something they're going to want to fill out. I think something that occurred when Bill was here throughout pretty much his entire tenure, and people criticized him for it, was the filling out the quote-unquote middle class of the roster, right? So they're like, oh my gosh, he's paying these guys like $8 million and he's not even like a star player. And it's like, yes, but you're getting solid play out of like the middle of your roster, so you don't end up going from like, hey, we have a starter to a guy who can't even play. When I think of that, I think of teams like, the Houston Texans from back in the day where they had all these stars, and the minute one of them went down, you're just like, I don't know who that guy is, and he's just out there playing football for them. Okay. And I think that's what happened to the yes, all of a sudden Truman Jones is out there making sacks for the Texans. I think that's what happened with the Patriots this year. I think the best way for them to kind of figure that out is to fill up the middle of that roster and not just go, hey, we're going with our starters and rookies, because you kind of can't just rely on the rookies. You're asking a lot of them to come in and save the franchise. And I think the rookie receivers, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker got put in an impossible situation this year. And the results kind of bore out, right? I think they combined for like 13 catches between the two of them. 13 catches for, I think, 89 yards or something to that effect. Not great. But that's tough when you're just being asked to like go out there and, hey, we really need you. Get out there. And I think Caden Wallace was also put in an unfortunate situation. Now, of course, he was going to need a little work in the first place. But I think it was tough when he's being paired with Chuks Okorafor, and Okorafor retires 12 snaps into the season. And it's like, all right, Caden, get in there. And it's like, holy shit.
And this is where, again, I blame the coaching on this one. What will in my mind will never, ever make sense to me is why Caden Wallace did not start that final game of the season.
Because we needed one more round of DeMontre Jacobs just to feel something.
Just get Von Miller his sack bonus.
Holy shit. I don't understand that either. What was that about?
That's your tackle. Like, that's the guy you took to be your starting tackle next season. Let's say you have one game left of the regular season. Yes, it's against backup, so treat it like a damn preseason game.
Put him in there. Yeah.
And put him in. Give him the reps. It's the same way you gave Joe Milton a full game to show what he was doing, and he balled out. Like we didn't know what Caden Wallace could do because it was, and I don't have the same I think that Demontre Jacobs was also put in a bad spot, just that whole offensive line, because they weren't, supposed to be starters who had to become these NFL starters overnight.
Literally overnight. Like they were waived on Tuesday and starting on Sunday. That was bananas, man.
Ben Brown.
Ben Brown. He got here on Thursday. He was starting
for 48 hours. He was on red eyes from Vegas.
What a shit show we just sat through, y'all. Holy shit. Like, as we talk about it, the more we talk about it, the more I'm just like, wow, we really sat through that season. That was insane.
It's like reliving the night before where it's like, okay, what did I do? It's like when you're at brunch the next morning after like a long night of having fun, and it's just like,
yep, it's coming to you in patches. It's like, I forgot about that. That was terrible.
Oh my god, it was
dude, you did this. You tried to hit on some, you hit on someone with a boyfriend. You puked in the Uber. It's just like, Jesus Christ, that night was messy. I'm looking, I keep looking through the list of free agents just to see hey, who's available, and I see names like, oh, Zach Bond. I'm like, Patriots would not afford him. But I look at Robert Spillane, for example, who could be good for a linebacker, but also help with that veteran presence, as McGarvin's coughing up a lung in the bottom of us. I'm looking at Nick Bolton, for example, Ernest Jones, even for safety too. What about Javon Holland? Hey, come up north to a rival,
Yes, Javon Holland, bring me.
The rest of the podcast, you're just gonna name names, and I want McGarvin's reaction with that hat just bouncing up and down.
Yes, bring me a Javon Holland, please.
You know who also is a free agent next season? Familiar cornerback, who's currently with the Minnesota Vikings.
Gilly?
I was gonna say Bynum.
I believe Stephon Gilmore is a free agent next season, or this coming season. Imagine him next to Gonzo. Just saying.
God, right? I think just might be in the weeds here, but I think what we really need next to Gonzo, I really want a JC Jackson type, someone who can just force turnovers.
But JC Jackson,
yes, the first time around, not the guy we got last time, but someone who can kind of force turnovers, because I think Gonzo's the kind of technician player.
Yeah,
right. He's gonna line up. He's gonna give you solid coverage throughout. They're not gonna target him because his guy's not open.
Well,
the guy opposite him is going to see a lot of targets. He should be someone who turns the ball over, a Jack Jones type, but less volatile.
I completely agree.
Guns. What about a Byron Murphy or a Mike Hilton even?
Mike Hilton, I don't know what's up with him. He, I think he might be done. As far as I don't think he can run anymore. But Byron Murphy would be great. I mean, I liked him in the draft, and he was stuck in Arizona hell. So
I'm just looking at the list of hey, free agents, and those are guys coming to mind. Even too. I mean, I would love an Asante Samuel Jr., but his dad hates the effing organization now, so who knows how that one would go.
Yeah, and the Chargers would be foolish to let him out the building as well.
Yeah, but Josh Palmer too, though, is a wide receiver option as well for.
Yeah, Keenan Allen.
Yes. Yeah, I like him.
Keenan Allen will be a free agent.
I'm not so big on Keenan Allen, but Josh Palmer. I think he's the Terry McLaurin of second receivers. He's pretty good for a second. You're oh, this guy's really good for a second receiver.
Yeah, but he comes to New England, he's number one, it seems.
No.
I know I'm messing with you.
Pair him with someone else. But I do think he's kind of like a Brandon LaFell as far as the role I think he would fit, where you're just he can't be your top guy, but as your second guy, he's gonna fuck up a cornerback.
Yeah, one of the best celebrations in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man,
right,
LaFell.
Yeah. No, it's just that's why I keep saying names, possibilities are endless. Even I'm looking at lists too, because for wide receivers, for example, they list hey, potential trade candidates and all this other stuff. One wide receiver, look, I've always liked him. I'd be very interested for trading him, but I think Indy would be foolish for letting him out the building. Do you call and see what the price is on a Michael Pittman Jr.? Do you?
I think you call and check the price on everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
you need to. You need to call and check the price on everyone.
the team just needs a little more juice.
Unfortunately, your best bet might be to trade for a wide receiver rather than trying free agency because, as I said,
don't get there.
Yes, the draw is a little bit better this year, but I think it was Albert Breer who put today, it's still going to be one of the hardest things.
I have the perfect candidate for you. Do you like a disgruntled wide receiver who's been pitched to us before? May I interest you in shares of number 14 from the Seattle Seahawks, Mr. DK Metcalf? Look, we've seen it now for like a while. JSN's going to be the number one there next year. We all know that. He had a pretty.
I thought he was the number one this year. He was phenomenal.
No, you know what I mean? He was the number one, but then DK's getting paid to be a number one, but he's not playing like that. Now he can go somewhere and truly be the number one. Hey, and I know everyone too is going to be on AJ Brown and his sideline readings and all that fun stuff, but what about him? What about?
I take AJ Brown.
What about? I know I take either one. Just saying. And then, or if you're going to get really crazy, why not call the Jets and be like, hey, if you want to bring back Aaron Rodgers, what do you want for Garrett Wilson? Hell, call the Jag. I would even say Christian Kirk, but I know he's coming off an injury, so that's one I probably would avoid, especially at the money he's making. Unless
getting someone out of the Jets organization might be the only way you can, as like a step up in the AFC East. It's like, well, at least you're getting out of that.
You at least get a chance to compete.
But they stink worse.
We stink, but we believe we stink. They think they're going to the Super Bowl.
We actually try and hire.
Goodness.
We don't hire Adam Gase after he failed in another division rival.
And keep him for way too long.
My favorite Jets moment will always be it was the final game, I think, of Todd Bowles' career, and the entire game was Ian Eagle just going like, oh, he's on his way out. He's getting fired. I'm like, guys, it's the second quarter. Like, let the man finish the game. I think they won like 38-3 or something. I think it was like a stomping that game, but I just remember that. I was like, oh, Todd Bowles getting fired, this and this. I'm just like, guys, like let the man coach. But no, if the Jets hire Rex Ryan again, I swear to God, I don't know whether if I'm going to laugh or just be like that's so you. They're either going to do that or they're going to do like Arthur Smith, and the Jags are going to hire Robert Saleh. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't even know he interviewed there.
Apparently he did, which it would just be funny if, they're going to get someone who's going to be like, they're going to get that, like what Dan Quinn was last year. They're going to get like that kind of hire in Jacksonville.
I was hoping that he would be available as a possible coordinator candidate, but I think he'll get a head coaching job.
Oh, I love him at DC, but that's what I think is going to happen too. Like, I don't need the Patriots being like, hey, we're bringing in Gus Bradley. I'm going, no, he just got fired from the Colts. No, sweetheart. No, don't do that. Before we move on to the divisional round, just because there still is football going on, and which I'm going to say is right now, this is the best weekend of football, NFL schedule by far. I know there's a Super Bowl. I know there's conference championship. This is the best weekend by far. You get the 4 best teams. And also my favorite slate of games, Sunday, 3:05 and 6:40. 6:40 football is the best.
I love it.
Especially for someone like me who likes to be in bed earlier now, all that stuff.
We don't have the kids to worry about. We can just watch football. You got to worry about the little ones, right?
Yeah. I don't mind the 6:40 football. My only issue is that when it's over, I'm just like, damn, I wish there was more football on. Like, just one more game, just one more. I feel like it's just slightly too early in the night, and I'm just like, no, I just need one more, please.
Do you remember back in the day when ESPN Week 1 would do the 7 o'clock game, and then they do like a 10 o'clock at night game?
Yes, that was brutal. Because 10 o'clock, I am ready for bed. And it was always some team you didn't want to watch. It was like the Niners Vikings every year, and I'm like, dang, I don't want to watch that. I'm tired.
But you had to stay up because you were like, well,
because I'm a sicko, so I'm like, all right, guess I'm watching.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always say too. Like, I remember a month ago, I was literally right in my sectional, right in front of us, watching Rams 49ers, and I'm like, at the end of it, I'm like, why did I just watch that? I'm like, oh right, because I love this, and I can't help myself. It's like, because I know 3 months from now, I'm going to be like
prime time Thursday night football game this season was why
I watched the
am I
entirety of Colts Broncos? No shame. Colts Broncos 2 years ago. I literally, when I was in Boston, we literally watched the entire game. We actually started that game at what's the bar called? Greatest Bar?
Something like that.
Yeah, like that one right there near the Garden. We literally started it there, and I like watched the entire game, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Yeah, I had the Colts to cover," so I was like, "Yes." One thing, there's a hot take I've been sitting on with the Patriots going into free agency. I think there's someone on the team who's going to get cut that we don't see coming. That's going to maybe piss people off, or some people are going to be caught off guard by it, but it will benefit. It'll benefit the team in the long run.
What side of the ball?
I don't want to say this, but I think my candidate I'm thinking about is Ramondre. And that they try to go. I don't think it's a shot. I was thinking, like, is it hit? Like someone that they signed. Yeah, like that's what I'm not saying. Like a cut or a trade. There's a move that like, hey, they don't see coming, and people are going to be like, oh, mad about it. It's not going to be what Houston did with DeAndre Hopkins because that's one of the all-time dumbest trades ever. Or what Carolina got for Brian Burns last year. That was inexcusable. But you know what I mean? And I'm not saying Ramondre directly, but I mean someone like that people don't like either side of the ball, like we don't see coming, to where it's like we say, when you guys got covered, it's like the tough deal. Like you got to rip off that Band-Aid to like, hey.
I don't know if it's someone that we won't see it coming, but I think that player is probably Jabril Peppers IMO. And I know he just got extended, but I think
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Someone someone who was extended last offseason.
Yeah, I can see that, or I can see Kyle Duggar as well. Yeah, personally, I would not like that. I'm a huge Duggar truther. But I could see it. He had the ankle injury, and just looked absolutely cooked coming back from it. Up until the last week of the season is when he like finally started to like round into form. But prior to that, I mean, he was out there running around, and you're like, ooh, whatever the foot speed, like he can't get to where he needs to get to. Then he's missing tackles. Yeah, and
I've never seen him he just, for someone of that much talent.
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah. So he would be my surprise pick, and I would be very annoyed by it. But yeah,
that's what I mean. Like I'm not out here saying like Ramondre is going to get traded or cut or anything like that. No.
Right.
No.
It's just a surprise cut.
I feel like there's going to be
it's Joe Milton time.
They're really upset about him proposing and not being at that press conference. He's out of here.
Mike Felger's a sleeper agent for the Patriots, everyone. Didn't you know that? I honestly loved how like everyone, like even like Callahan was like took a shot at it, where it's like, oh, a pretty good excuse to miss the press conference, huh? And all this stuff like that. But McGarvin, there's one coach that Sophie and I kind of bonded over that I feel like needs to be back, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Jeremy Springer.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, brother. Oh yeah. I think him and Mike Pellegrino are the two coaches that like, if you can get him to stay.
Mike Pellegrino needs to be back.
Yeah, he is.
Something on Instagram, and people are just like, please stay.
It kind of looked like a goodbye. It was weird.
No, I didn't see it.
It was kind of just like the last 6 years have been something like that. Like
it was about All Pro Zoe, which shout out our boy, All Pro Zoe.
It was awesome for him.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted. He wanted it so bad. I mean, not all he wanted. He wants to win, obviously, but like in a season like this, that you're allowed to say that's all I wanted.
I'll say this too.
All right, I was just looking at the Instagram. Yes, All Pro Zoe, absolutely. Should have been first team IMO, but tough case to make because
Marlon Humphrey's a dog.
And I think Marlon Humphrey probably playing some of the best corner in the league this year. Him, Pat Surtain, and Christian Gonzalez. It would have been my picks. But I'm not. I think it's so close that I can't be like, well, Derek Stingley didn't deserve it, because like he did. But so did Gonzo, and it was for me pretty much a coin flip. Like, all right, fine, I'll take second team on there.
Yeah,
I'll be first soon enough.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see, man, what a player he is, man.
Listen, I think you're in a different conversation if your team's winning. Like, could we have seen it the first team if the Patriots were like a 10-win team?
Yep.
Yeah, he'd be on that first team list. But when your team is a 4-win team and your efforts aren't going to be noted, I mean, I think getting second team, again, he deserved more, but getting second team given what had happened this season is pretty dang impressive.
Yep. And to that point, Brendan Schooler, can we get some love for Brendan Schooler? I mean, all pro. I mean, that was someone I had pegged as an all pro. And like, you go back through my tweets as early as I think it was August 30th. I was like, yeah, that guy's an all pro. Because you just watch and you're like, okay, he's like legitimately affecting the game because of his gunning ability. You're just like, okay, cool. The punt's in the air. and he is down on the returner before the ball hits, and you're like, well, he's not going to be able to return this ball. And then he's making tackles, he's forcing fumbles. He is so good. I'm just like, wow, that is a phenomenal player. And I'm glad that it was so obvious. I think Marcus Jones also had a case if he didn't get hurt.
Yes,
but that's been the story of the last, his entire career.
Yeah.
I think he has ended the year on IR every single year. You
just can't say healthy.
Yeah, because he's small. He's small, and that's kind of what happens to small players. But
that's the thing. I think like Marcus Jones to me is someone who like should be a core special teamer. Like if you don't risk injury on other parts of the field, because as much as you could throw him in for some corner packages, like things like that, but I'll never understand how we're talking about someone so small and you put him on like 6 foot something receivers.
Yeah.
Like how does that make sense?
It makes sense in the fact that like he can cover well, he covers well. It just as the ball gets there, he just gets big boys. Yeah. I know. It's so tough because people will be like, oh, he stinks. He's getting burned out there. And I'm like, he's not. He's in great coverage. It's just, he's 5'8", and that guy's not.
That's like me trying to cover Sam.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so tough because with a player like that, you want to let him play corner because like again, and he pressures the football. He turns over the football. The team doesn't create enough turnovers. He covers well and turns over the football. You kind of want him on the field. At the same time, 5'8" is 5'8". That's tough. That is tough.
Oh my god. 5'8" is 5'8". Hey, I'm 6'2", and I don't even think I would be able to cover him. But no, there's a lot of potential with this team that if they basically, hey, you got to play your cards right. You do this here.
There's potential if you like gut half the team. Unfortunately, I hate to say it.
I
was trying to be polite. It's the Canadian in me, okay?
Yeah, Sophie's on my wavelength. Yeah, I agree, girl. Like, look,
I give the players so much credit for this season because I
give them a lot of respect. However,
they were brought in under horrid circumstances, but a lot of listen, if you have some of these guys back, but as your depth pieces, I'm not exactly that upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bringing half these guys that were starters back as your starters, then something went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I'm at with that.
That's where Elliot Wolf would potentially be let go if something like that were to happen.
Yeah,
but like
if he's like, hey, we're just gonna run it back with these guys, and it's like, don't do that. These guys stink.
Nope. And hopefully one other wish I have for the season is I know Sophie loves to travel, but please, we don't need a third straight year of the Patriots going to Europe to play a football game.
My wallet can't take it. We're okay.
I know, because like it was announced, I know Cleveland's playing one, New York's playing one, and Jacksonville's playing one. And luckily the Patriots play the Jets, but I doubt they're going to do Patriots-Jets in London. Otherwise, that's a slap in the face to all of Europe. And they have the Colts going to Berlin, which like, I don't know who they pissed off, again, Germany. Stop giving Germany like 1 year. It's Colts Patriots. It's Giants Panthers. It's what's it gonna be Colts and Titans this year? Like guys, what you're like Germany. I know Germany like is responsible for a lot of stuff, but like guys, no.
Oh my god!
Literally, when it was Giants, I know. Sorry, Sophie. I know. Sorry about that. It's just like I know people were literally making that joke where it's like, what did Germany do to get Giants Panthers? It's like, oh wait.
The 1940s.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man.
No need to apologize.
Yeah. I'm just being nice. Well, you know what? We got a lot of Patriots banter out of the way, so let's talk about some actual good football, huh? We got 4 games. We'll run through them quick.
Jacobs.
Ooh.
I'm just digging on McGarvin now for his takes tonight. That was too easy.
Week 18, I really remember just Googling him. I'm like, DeMontre Jacobs contract. I'm like, oh, thank God he's a free agent after this season.
Yeah, he's an exclusive rights free agent. If they want him back, they'll get him back. But I can't imagine they would. Well, they probably will, actually.
They're going to bring him back as a depth
there's no reason not to.
Yeah. I'm very okay with DeMontre Jacobs being on that roster as a depth piece.
Street clothes on Sunday, I am fine with it.
Yeah, well, I'll take him in a uniform as well, just as long as it's nice and clean.
Yes.
Just keep it crispy and we're good.
It's the way you said that. Nice and clean.
Oh, God. I'm so tired.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I got to get this guy back on the track.
All right, let's talk playoffs.
Playoffs. First game up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, who I got to say, CJ Stroud's emotional support wide receiver, Sophie, that was a joke McGarvin and I had last week, came to play.
He
Another
sure did.
Another player I want to give my roses to from the Houston Texans is Mr. Lassiter, who was a ball hawk last Saturday. And as well, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I have two opinions on this game. Either Houston squeaks one out and Kansas City's luck goes against them, or the more likely one, I think the Chiefs win this game by about 10 to 14 points.
I think the Chiefs have this one. I don't think that the Texans have a strong enough offensive line, and I think that the Chiefs defense, I mean, led by, Chris Jones, is just gonna, I think they're gonna crash in on CJ more than the Texans want, and he's not gonna be able to make the plays he needs to make.
I also Sophie is right. That O-line is what's going to hamstring him. That Kansas City front is too big and too good, right? And I mentioned the big because I don't think that Houston's offensive line can move them to get the ground game going. At that point, you're putting it all in CJ Stroud's hands, at which point the pass rushers come to pass rush. And that secondary is not, the secondary is not sweet. Like they are a tough secondary to throw against. I think the Texans are in for it. I want the upset, but I think they're in for it.
Last Saturday, it was 5:29 p.m. when someone tweeted, CJ, have some shame, brother.
Goodness, Lord help us. Goodness. Some of those interceptions, I'm like, man, we can see you. Oh, my goodness.
What's the over? I'm going to say the over-under is 5:15 for the first time that you tweet that this weekend. The other big difference with these two, because, look, we all know Kansas City's O-line can be a bit of a problem as well. But Patrick's going to have the know-it-all of when to get rid of the football as compared to CJ. That's my other big thing with this game. So I do think the Chiefs win. They win comfortably. I don't like when I say comfortably, I mean like 10 to 14 points. I could also see a world where we see what happened with Denver Buffalo, where it's like Houston comes out. It's like, oh, look at the Houston Texans. And then you snap your fingers and you know what? The big, no pun intended, but the big bad wolf kind of does his thing. I say that because of obviously that bank robber dude who's in prison now for the Chiefs fan guy. And then Saturday night, it's going to be a lot of fun watching very old Bobby Wagner try to catch Jahmyr Gibbs, isn't it?
That'll be a lot of fun. That's a game that feels like the game where you can actually get an upset. Like, I know that's like trendy. Everyone's like, oh, Washington could get kind of frisky. I think they have a legitimate opportunity to do so. I think that Jaden Daniels is a difference maker, man. That guy, holy smokes. And the thing, this time last year, he wasn't like, no one was like, oh, he's going to be a top 5 pick. Everyone's like, oh, you can trade down and get him later. And I'm like, he's not going to be there. He just won't be. And then he went 2 overall. So man, what an exciting guy. And I think their offense can take advantage of Detroit's deficiencies in terms of personnel on defense.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're going to get in trouble. I think Kirby Joseph, their safety, phenomenal player. He cannot do it by himself, though. And I think Terrion Arnold is in for a tough time covering Terry McLaurin. And I think Terrion Arnold's a good corner. He gets a little grabby. Terry McLaurin, he's gonna make you grab him. So it's gonna be it can be tough.
Terrion's gonna be good one day, but he's still a rookie at heart right now.
Mm-hmm. And he looks as such. I think on the flip side, I think the Lions offense matches up well with Washington's defense. I don't think that their front, as good as Washington's front is, I don't think that they have anything to worry about as far as Detroit's offensive line goes. I think they'll handle that just fine. Washington's secondary doesn't really scare me. Marshawn Lattimore, I know he took a lot of heat for getting absolutely roasted by Mike Evans repeatedly the other night, but I think he's still nursing that hamstring, and it looks like that. So I think they're banged up in the secondary. I think they're also banged up at linebacker. Bobby Wagner hasn't practiced all week yet. He's going to be out there playing per Dan Quinn, and more power to him. That's something I can see. Their safeties aren't that good. I think Jamison Williams could have a huge game. Tough.
It's going to be Jaden Daniels. That's what the
that's
yeah. Come down
that's
to.
Going to be the swing there. Yeah.
It's you say a player can't do it all on their own, and that's very, very true. But listen, if the defense can pull out a few stops throughout the game, and Detroit's defense is unable to do anything to stop Jaden from making these insane plays that he seems to pull off, right there is what happens.
My big thing with this game too is just how will that crowd affect Jaden? Because I know Tampa was like
That's gonna
loud, but this is going to be a crowd that's on fire. Because with Detroit this year, it's no longer we're the cute little story. No, it's the we're here. We're
We
supposed
expect
to
to
be
win.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
expect to win. Basically, I like chewing bubble gum and kicking ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum. I think I just butchered that quote, but you know what I mean. So that's what I wonder. I think if they get to him early and often, Detroit can win this game comfortably with covering that 9.5 number. But if Jaden keeps him in it, that 9.5 is a very coverable number in my opinion from a
Nine and
betting
a half is a
standpoint.
big number. That is
Yes.
that is huge. They're like, oh, they're gonna win by 10. That's not gonna happen, man.
Yeah. That's
It's the playoffs. Everyone is good. Come on, put a little respect on them.
It's the same thing with the first game of Sunday afternoon where the Eagles are 6.5-point favorites against the Rams. I'm going to say the same thing too, like what I was saying with the Chargers last week. I don't think Jordan Love's bad. I just think he had a bad day to have a bad game. That's simply put. Philadelphia's defense got to him. Besides the other shenanigans going on in the crowd, but with a game like this right here, this is the one game where I look at and I would say I would not be shocked to see the home team lose. I'm going to say that because of the defense. If their defense can contain, but here's the thing though that scares me by saying that. Hey, your front can get to that offensive line and contain Saquon to a little bit of those shoestring tackles. But then you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, you have AJ Brown. It's just boom, 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 boom. But someone made a very good comparison with AJ Brown. Well, not AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts. It's kind of like, a hamburger, like where you have like just, right now it's like a plain burger with just a couple toppings. When will he be that quarterback to what people are saying is like an animal style from In-N-Out, what he was in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, where he was the best player on the field? When will we see that version of Jalen come into this game or not? That's the big question here. And for the Rams, it's the same sort of thing as well. Can Matt Stafford make those big plays to Kupp, to Nakua? Because those guys are going to have to show up because it was brought up. Do you guys remember the Rams-Bucks game a few years ago where Cooper Kupp, well, also that was because Todd Bowles was a moron and did cover zero in a blitz situation late in the game, but Cooper Kupp had that late play downfield to get them in field goal position to beat Tom. They're going to have to make plays like that, in my opinion, to win. But at the end of the day, I think the Rams keep it close, but I think the Eagles win this game.
No one's been able to stop Saquon all year.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
I like LA's defensive line. Holy shit, they're so good up front. Jared Verse,
they're
Byron
young and
Murphy.
cheap.
Yeah, it's Kobe Turner. Man, what a front. That said, they are in for it. that Philly O-line, man, they are in for it. I think this is one where like the Eagles win and they win comfortably, and then everyone starts saying, "Oh, well, they had such an easy path to the to the championship game," because I think they match up really well with what LA wants to do. I think Philly's defense can really get after that, and then offensively, I don't really buy the Rams offense. It just feels so. Cooper Kupp is a very good player, right? Puka Nacua, very good player. Matthew Stafford, very good player. Kyron Williams, very good player. But for whatever reason, they are so streaky, right? They'll just go stretches where they're just like, they're playing like bums. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? Y'all are supposed to be really good. And they can turn it on. But I'm concerned about what happens in those pockets where they're playing like ass, because I think that's where Philly can absolutely take them to the woodshed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we saw, like there's certain instances here where it's like the Minnesota game or the Patriots game where it's like, oh, look at them, they look really good. That's also proof that do not run cover zero against the Rams. You will get burned.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford will kill you on that.
Yeah, Stafford will kill you on that. But you know what? Like I said, when I said I can see a world of the Rams keep it close, like I do think the Eagles win. It's just I'm not sure. I think it's around that number there, that 6 or 7 number. And what else do we see Saquon run for like, what was it like? I think he went for like 240 the last time these guys played. That Sunday night game back in November. It was crazy.
Dang.
And then Sunday night, Ravens-Bills, the game that I'm going to say this right now because no matter who wins this game, the online discourse is going to be.
Oh, it's going to be so bad.
It's
so
going to be terrible.
Are you kidding? I'm just excited to get to write about it.
Oh, I wonder why that is.
No, just in general. Like, I think that's like the game. I mean, both fan bases are great. And I help out with both, especially now with the season over. So that's just going to be a fun one because it's just
Do you have a rooting interest?
like, yeah, but it's like for selfish reasons.
Yeah, that's fine. Because Sam's a Ravens fan, right?
Yeah, I just don't want him in a bad mood the rest of the night.
I love that, but that's so real. Because like, if we lose, the night's ruined. That's so real.
I just like, oh my god, I remember quick like story, but because I think it goes during the AFC Championship last year. I had just gotten back from a trip, with my dad. I had helped him out with a business trip to Vegas, and it was where the Super Bowl was. So we got him like they had all the Super Bowl gear out because it was like 2 weeks before. Or it was like, yeah, because it was right before. It was like we came home like the day before the AFC Championship game, and we got him like a purple Super Bowl hat because we're like, oh my god, if they win, like imagine we can give this to him, and then they lose to the Chiefs, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, we should probably wait, like let's not give this to him right now. And my dad walks down the stairs right after the loss and hands him this purple hat. And goes, well, I know they lost, but we got you a Super Bowl hat.
Oh my god, Dan, an icon.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
So that is why my selfish interest is the Ravens to win, because no bad moods in this.
But if the Ravens also win, McGarvin, we might see our boy again, that Bills fan that was just going through.
Oh my gosh, who's going through? Oh god, I hope so. I want that so bad. I need an update. I crave it. Every time the Bills lose, I'm like, dang, I wonder if he's all right now.
No, but I also think just from like a football standpoint, this is the Ravens' game to lose. They have, I mean, this if they play the game that they've been playing, to the level they've been playing it, there's no team, in my opinion, in the NFL can stop them right now.
I agree. You want to know my hot take? My hot take here is this is the game I think could end up being a Grizzly blowout. Like we just like, oh yeah, this is gonna be the game of the week, and it's gonna end like 28-7 or something like that, like Grizzly blowout, and you're just like, well, shit. And it would be in the Ravens' favor. I think the Ravens are just, man, God, what a buzzsaw that offense is right now, and the defense. I mean,
that they don't always play to their strength. That's only
so true.
They can also bully the Bills' D line as well.
Yeah.
The D line can get pushed around.
It's not even that. It's just like the Ravens have this like tendency where it's like we all know what they're capable of, and then we watch the game and we're like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah. Like when they opting not to run the football, or they're trying to get cute with the concepts, and you're like, holy cow.
Even when Derrick Henry is like on a small run, he manages to get 10 yards. Yeah. Like the Patriots' small run was like -5. And then you have like Derrick Henry who can get like 10 on just like a simple run. It's like, why aren't you running the dang football more? Yeah. You have Lamar, who has put up better statistics than he did his MVP season.
Yeah.
It's just, and the weapons he has on offense, I mean, the way that they're playing, you've gotten Mark Andrews super involved back in your offense. You have all these guys to go to. It's their game to lose, but the Ravens can be the Ravens sometimes in like not a good way.
I also think with a game like this too, like I said, Buffalo's D-line can get pushed around. We saw the Patriots do it, for Christ's sakes, a month ago. That game, that 4:25 start, we saw them do that. And I'll say this too. I think if the Bills lose this game, I think their fans will go into the offseason. You know what? It sucks. We lost in the division round again, but hey, you know what? We weren't expected to be this 2 seed and be 13-4 and win the division in December 1st, for Christ's sakes, because the rest of us were terrible. So they can kind of hang their hats on that. Meanwhile, if Baltimore loses this game, there's going to be so many questions going into next season where it's like, oh, hey, they do this. Plus, too, if we get Buffalo and Kansas City again, do we really need a full week of, they had a great game 3 years ago? Like, because I'll never forget last year, Jim and Tony went to Kansas City. It's like, wow, look at this. It's like, they play every season, guys. What are we doing here? It's not the first time. It's not like it's the first time since they met since. But I'm also ready for when I say discourse too. If Lamar win, if like Baltimore and Lamar win, everyone's going, oh, Lamar's the MVP, and it's like, guys, that's decided. Like that's already been voted on. Those votes have AP's already casted their votes for MVP.
The same time as All Pro came out, we know who won MVP.
Yeah. It's Lamar, and the only argument against him is that he already won it last year, and he already has 2, so Josh deserves 1. That is your best argument for it. Or the other argument is, well, Josh's team is terrible, and so he should be the MVP. Yes, but is he playing quarterback better than Lamar Jackson right now? No.
The only
Then that's the
argument I
answer.
see valid on that one is that last season, I think it was like Allen had like better statistics overall or something like that, and they
Yep.
still chose Lamar. So it's like you
Absolutely.
value that's the only reason I'm just like, okay,
But I just don't think you can make that argument this year because
I'm with you. Lamar
you
is
just look at it
clearly,
and you're like, yeah, number 8 is playing the best quarterback in the league right now. Like, and that's not a stretch. That's not a stretch to
I
say.
get why Bills fans are upset because it's like you can't say one year you value
play versus statistics, and then on the other year not do that. I absolutely understand.
But
Give
I'm
it
with
to 8 though. MV3 maybe.
I also get my memes that I get to post. I get to post the memes again.
Yes, need that. Also, I think the implication in the AFC is, I think even though they've already beaten Kansas City this year, I think
Baltimore can hang in with them better than Buffalo.
Yes, yeah, I trust Baltimore to go out there and make it happen more than I trust Buffalo to. And that's just because of everything we talked about just now with Josh Allen's MVP case, where everyone's like, well, his team's not very good. And I'm like, yes, and Andy Reid is going to punish him for that. It's the playoffs. I know they already won. It's going to be a little different this year. I think the Ravens, they're my Super Bowl pick anyway. I think they're going to go in there, going to take care of business. It's going to be one of those games where people are going to be being all sarcastic on the timeline. Oh, we stayed up for this. But I'm just ready for an AFC Championship game with the Baltimore Ravens, and more specifically Lamar Jackson. I don't want anyone thinking like, oh, this guy's a Raven fan. No, I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. There's a difference.
Yes. No, the big thing too with Baltimore as well is just the fact as well, like they're set. Like I know McGarvin and I, we've given our flowers to Christian Benford before. He's really good secondary, but like with Baltimore,
he's so good.
But
he's someone who also had an All-Pro case, but just kind of tailed off there at the end.
But with Baltimore, though, they have Marlon Humphrey. They have Kyle Hamilton's been a dog the last
God, how good is he, huh? Sorry, quick tangent. Man, he's someone who I realized that the internet is stupid because he ran his 40 and everyone's like, oh, you can't draft him in the first round. He ran like 4.6, and I'm like, watch the games. He's so good. And then the Ravens drafted him, and oh my God, he's so good. What a shock! Like, come on.
Stop evaluating draft people because of their 40 time.
Holy cow, it's so dumb.
It's like Zach Wilson going second overall because he threw some bombs on his
he threw a real nice pass in his pro day. Get out of my face. I don't like that guy. I'm sorry.
I got the name for my plot. Oh, remember last year? Hey, he didn't go for Broadway tickets, but he managed to get traded.
Yeah, that was fun. Hell.
But also have the podcast. I'll get out of my face. But no, the other thing too is, and also Nate Wiggins as well.
Good corner.
And also here's the other thing too. Like when you look at the offensive lines, like Baltimore's good. Roger Rosengarten's also really come along this year as well. I remember.
Yeah, he was struggling to start the year and really pulled it together.
That Kansas City game too, he was really struggling.
Yeah.
But I think too, if you give Baltimore another crack at Kansas City, I think that they can beat them.
It should have beat them the first time.
Isaiah
Likely's foot's just a little too big.
There's no team in the NFL right now better than the Baltimore Ravens. If the Baltimore Ravens play the game that they are capable of playing.
Absolutely.
Because I know that the media, because if the Chiefs beat the Texans by say if it's like, I don't know, 28-17, let's just throw numbers out. The entire week's going to be about, Patrick's, he's always been to the AFC Championship game. Everyone's going to think, hey, it's the simple hop, skip, and a jump. He's going there. He's going to the AFC Championship game. But with Baltimore, though, think about it. The last time these teams played last year, it was Baltimore who had everything going for them. Ironically, beat Houston. Kansas City had to go to Buffalo after playing on the Saturday night of the first playoff game against a dreaded Miami team who had no business being on that field because it was too cold. So, I think with Baltimore next week, that's the thing. They would be playing with house money. They would be playing with nothing to lose. Meanwhile, Kansas City, if Kansas City doesn't do the three-peat this year, especially after 15-2, not that there's going to be questions, but there's going to be that, like, what's up, guys? Like, hey, like, that like reality check of like, oh, hey, you had this to where I will say this right now. I think there's a chance that if it's Baltimore, Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, I think we could have the potential. I don't know if we have the potential to, but that's where I think it gets a little grisly. where Kansas City just like, hey, there's some plays that Patrick Mahomes doesn't make or he gets picked off. Like, remember the AFC Championship game against Cincinnati? That's what happened. He threw a bad pick to Jesse Bates, and Evan McPherson's shoe took the Bengals to the Super Bowl. So we'll have to see what happens. But like I said, I think we're getting 4 great games this weekend. Hopefully we get, because I'll say this too, Buffalo winning would not be an upset. This is a pick'em game. But
Buffalo, I also am seeing is there's a ton of snow. And Buffalo like thrives in that environment. That could that's the only thing that could affect Baltimore a little bit is the conditions in Buffalo for the game.
So I want to point out something right now too, just for betting wise, just for money. So the Houston Texans right now have 20% of the money coming in on them. The Commanders have 19%, and the Rams have 29%. Meanwhile, Baltimore, Buffalo, it's 50-50 right now. So we'll have to see what happens, but I hate how everyone's going right now. Oh, the cold, it's a disadvantage for Baltimore. Football should be played in a dome. No, football's a game meant to be played in the elements, and it's cold in Baltimore too. It's like when the Patriots won that monsoon game against the Ravens, and everyone was just like, oh, the weather. I'm like, Baltimore's in the Northeast. Like, what are we doing?
Well, I'm not. The only reason I'm saying is just because the amount of snow that the possibility that Buffalo can get is like
8 degrees Fahrenheit is the high for kickoff.
Yeah.
If they get a lot of snow, I think the Ravens win even more. Because I think conditions favor running the football, and that kind of forces the ball into Derrick Henry's hands. And I think if that's the game that Buffalo ends up having to play, they're in a lot of trouble.
Derrick Henry channels his inner Damian Harris with a nice little run in Buffalo.
God, that would be fun, huh?
You know what game I'm talking about, right?
The win game, yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's all. Oh man, it was so great getting the squad back together, wasn't it, guys?
That was fun, yeah. I went
McGarvin
on a long rant on Elliott Wolf. DeMontre Jacobs caught a stray. What?
You just made me laugh all night.
Look, I'm just here to have fun.
That's what we're all here for. It's like our ability to like vent to everyone, and just the three of us get to talk because it's what we've done for the last year now, and also. Part of me, not to like flex or anything, but I love how Sophie's just like, oh, and when we come back on here and talk, not just implementing like, oh, if it'll happen. No, when it'll happen. So we'll have to see when it happens. But do we have any other closing thoughts before we wrap this up, guys?
I just want to hear more on DeMontre Jacobs.
Ooh.
I just want DeMontre Jacobs. I just hope DeMontre Jacobs is doing well, and hopefully next year with some better coaching, he's not being put in a position where he's just getting whooped left and right with absolutely no help. Jesus freaking Christ. The game where they benched him for City Soul, holy shit. That was one where it's like, oh my God, someone help that man. They gave him no help on that. You know what? Now's not the time. We're wrapping it up. Have a good night,
God, I was just messing with you and you took it.
I've got a lot to say.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, that's going to do it for us here. Episode 341 in the bag. Maybe we'll run it back. We'll run it back. We just got to figure out when. Maybe we'll back next week, because there's always more Patriots stuff to talk about. Because why? McGarvin's got a lot in his chest, and Sophie and I really like to listen, but we also like to talk too.
Hopefully by then we'll know, the offensive, not the offensive, but the assistants, the coaching assistants for Vrabel, or at least have some better rumblings. So right now it's just naked speculation. We don't really know who. We just like, oh, he could be into this guy, could be into that guy. We don't know who they brought in for any kind of interviews. Hopefully by then we'll know.
Yeah.
Like the other name I would like to hear something about would be like even a Clint Kubiak, but I think he's going to get the Seattle job. I saw that a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next week.
We got more next week, guys. So
gotta save some.
You know what? The best is yet to come. Enjoy divisional weekend, guys, because like I say, even if the games are bad, football will be gone before you know it, and we'll be here to talk for 7 more months. Have a good night.
Bye.